Okay, we're in a position to handle a couple of questions. Remember, the important part is to realize if you, rather than trying to ask specific questions about your pension plan, trying to ask general questions, really do encourage you, if you want one-on-one, either come to the conference office. Stephen will be glad to work with you, or come to the clergy benefits workshop. Stephen's going to try and answer your questions. I'm going to run upstairs to get ready to handle the comp forms.
Thank you, Brian. Slight adjustment for height here. We have a question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Randy Little from Hera. It seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it seems to me that the 1.25%, if we have a parsonage that was automatically calculated in on the church's calculation for our pension, but when we had a housing allowance, it was only 1%. It seems to me, since that 0.25% is taken away, the clergy living in parsonages are at a distinct disadvantage over and against those who have a housing allowance even now. So if I'm correct, that just puts it at a disadvantage. So I'm wondering, if we plan ahead now, are they going to loosen up the requirements that we can buy a house if we want to, even though a parsonage is supplied, so that we could start building a house in equity so that we don't have to take a big chunk of change out of our pension to buy a house on retirement?
That's a great question. The thing you need to understand when we're talking about that DAC, the $65,000, is that's not based on the total base compensation you receive from the church. Your housing is counted with that. So whether you live in a parsonage or you get a housing allowance to the church, that's all added together, and it's called billable compensation. And we're going to go through that in detail when we go through the compensation forms in a minute, but everything is based off of your housing included. So you're not penalized for not living in a parsonage or penalized for living in a parsonage. A lot of times you get more of a benefit from living in a parsonage than you do by not living in a parsonage. Does that answer your question? I know it's kind of a confusing issue, but there's no penalty at all. If you're talking about the 1.25 going to 1%, it's just the formula going forward. It's not anything to do with whether you live in a house or not. It's all based on billable compensation, which is housing plus your base compensation. If that was really confusing, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it more in detail. But okay. Are there any other general questions about the changes going forward? In the back here? Looks like Steve is on his way.
The 35% that we have to annuitize, is that, if we leave that with the general board, do you have to do all the tax? You have to pay the tax on it then, or is it?
Technically, it's 65% that you have to annuitize. 35% you have to take out. You cannot annuitize it. So your question is, if you leave it with the general board, you don't lose your housing advantage. So we really, it's your money. You can do what you want to with it, but be aware if you take that money off account from the general board, you do lose the ability to declare that money as housing and retirement. You lose an important tax consideration as well.
Okay.
So yes, Chuck, you have a question?
I downloaded the compensation form, which is for 2014, and if we were to arrange this additional pension directly between the local church and the general board, where would that mount?
Okay, that's a separate amount. That's not included in your compensation when it comes to the church from the conference standpoint. What that is called is discretionary UMPIP contributions. If you're a large church and you sponsor your lay employees under UMPIP, for example, I work for the conference. I'm not a clergy, but the conference pays a pension for me. So they have an adoption agreement set up where the conference sends me a bill, and then we pay it on that behalf. So it'd be the similar setup in that standpoint. It would be on top, but it wouldn't be part of your compensation form.
How does the cabinet know that number for?
That would just be something that had to be communicated during the church conference process. It's not something that would be put in any formal way.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is Bob's video going to be posted on the website?
Absolutely. Brent is going to email it to us, and we're going to post it on our website. We're actually in the process of redoing our website. With all the changes coming forward, we feel it's important that we have something that's an effective piece of communication. And so we'll put it on the benefits website probably in the next couple of weeks.
We'll
so
pop a bowl of popcorn. I'll watch it with my wife.
It'll be on YouTube, so yes. Any other additional questions? Looks like Chris has got one.
Two simple questions. One is the years of service. Is that years of service total applied to each one of those pots, or is it the years of service since that pot's been created?
It's the years of service since the pot's been created. So you've been in ministry for a while. So years of service under the old
What's
plan would
that?
be years from 1/1/2007 to 12/31/2013. Take that number, which would be 7, times 1.25% times the DAC when you retire in 2018, as an example.
Right.
And then that's your pool. You divide that. And then you take your years of service from 1/1/2014 on to 12/31/2018 when you retire. You take those 4 years, multiply it times 1%, times the DAC in 2018, and add them together. So it's two pots, but the years of service is not a total number. It's just per each plan.
And in the MPP before, it would be from when you started to when the fund stopped?
Yeah, MPP, there's no years of service at all calculated in that at all. It's a strictly defined contribution account that you're able to annuitize at retirement. So it
Okay.
doesn't matter. Years of service for pension purposes for MPP don't really matter. When it comes to your benefit paid, it's your return and your gains and your losses on the market when you annuitize,
So
is what it is.
the years of service that we figure is the years that we were serving in that.
During
Year
that
span.
pension plan, yes. So
Okay.
1/1/2014 forward is the years of service you'll have going forward. And then 1/1/2007 to 12/31/2013 will be the years on the current plan.
Great. The second question was this: does Ernst & Young have access
Absolutely.
to our personal information so we can check our math with them?
Yeah, you can. And that is a great question. You have to sign an authorization form, and you have to go through some hoops, when I say this, to do it, because you have to give them permission to access your record. And they're very objective in what they tell you. They will tell you if there's a better thing for you to do with your money outside of the general board. But they are also well-versed in the general board pension plan. The general board makes them go and teaches them everything ins and outs about how their plan works. They know about it, and it's free, independent, objective advice. But yes, they do have access to your record.
Have that 800 number for
I do on our
Ernst & Young?
website. I don't right now, but I will have it. Okay?
Yeah, Stephen,
Yes, Charlie.
for our part-time local pastors, I want to make sure that I'm telling my pastors correctly. Part-time, anybody less than full-time, they are not in the CRISP program, is that correct?
That's correct. They're in UMPIP, which is a 403B, a defined contribution account where the church is contributing 10% of their compensation for the year to their retirement account for them to invest at their discretion.
Now, I want to make sure that the local, part-time local pastors understood that 10% of their billable compensation will be contributed to their pension by their local church.
We'll go through that example here in a minute with the compensation forms, and how that would work. Wade, do you have a question?
Yes, on the new annuities figured out for spouse, when you have a spouse, and it'll be a lower rate, does that covers all annuities from here on forward, including those that are funded out of your MMP?
No, that's just for years of service going forward as of 1/1/2014.
So for somebody like myself that has where most of my retirement would be prior 2014,
Yeah,
all
most
the
of-
annuities prior to that would be
That's
same
just
old
that's
rules.
for clergy retirement security plan annuities going forward, 1/1/2014. Okay, not to rush you here, but I know we're up against lunch, and I know what it's like when clergy get hungry. So a couple of things I want to mention to you. One is the clergy benefits retreat. Bob mentioned it in the video. Very important that you go. One thing you need to understand is that Ernst & Young will actually physically be there again for the second year in a row for free. They're coming to offer guidance. We're the only conference in the denomination that's able to get them. I secured them up for the second year to come. We can't always guarantee that they're going to be there, so it's important that you're there. September 26th and 7th at Canyon Camp, and 3rd and 4th at Camp Egan. It's important to understand that I emailed out a registration link this morning again, so you'll get one from me every 2 weeks reminding you of it. We encourage everyone to come. And even if you are going to retire, we want you to come, so don't worry about it. The second is the General Board is offering a specialized retreat called Rev It Up. It's designed for young clergy ages 25 to 39. I'm going to send an email out tomorrow about it, but our Conference Board of Pensions is going to give any clergy in our conference a grant of $200 who choose to go to this retreat. It's a retreat designed to help young clergy understand what they can expect from the General Board, and it covers multiple things, not just pension, also how to handle ministry at a young age, starting out. It's a very good resource. They're doing it. We're kind of excited, so I want you to be aware of that as well. The final thing before we get to the fun world of compensation forms is that I sent a mailing out yesterday. And it's a big one. And every senior pastor here is going to get one, and every SPRC chair is going to get one. When you get it, please do not throw it away. Please read it. It's part of the Affordable Health Care Act. There's a requirement called mandatory notice. You have to notify your employees of the creation of the exchanges or the marketplace, which is the health insurance marketplace that goes online 1/1/2014. Open enrollment for those marketplaces start 10/1/2013. So you have to notify your employees in writing of this change. It's FSLA driven. If you don't do it, you'll be subject to a lawsuit, and if you don't do it, you'll be on Brian Bateman's bad side. So you want to make sure you do it. The letter dictates everything. More importantly, the letter has an example. The letter has a blank form for you to use, and it has a guideline summary for you to go through it step by step, going from there as well. Everything that you're getting in the mail will also be on our website for you to print out digitally as well if you need to have it. So, if there are any questions on that, I do want to go through 4 examples of the compensation form. We tried to be, how do I say this? We tried to recognize every side of ministry here going for this form for 2014 so you can understand how to fill it out and how it will help you and benefit you. It's a very important form that sometimes can be confusing because it can be a hard form to fill out. But we do that to protect you. We do that to make sure that you are not getting into trouble with the government and that you understand exactly what you have. It's a working form. So the first example that I want to go through with you here is we're going to make an assumption of our favorite Methodist for every example we use is John Wesley. So in this example, John Wesley is a full elder. He's appointed 100%, receiving $50,000 in base, and he lives in a parsonage. So for this example, part 1, we're going to see there that he's a full-time elder and his appointment percentage is 100%. We're checking that he lives in a parsonage there. And in line 2, we have to put in the $50,000 in his base, which is line 3. And then if you look at something right below that in line 4, since he is appointed 100%, the comp form, the first time you do it, is going to automatically default. Line 4, before tax contributions, it's going to tell you the amount of money you have to contribute to get that 1% match. That's that $625 in there. That's going to work for anybody who's appointed 100%. If you're not appointed 100%, it goes away. So that's a guideline that we're going to get into detail how that figures out here later on, but you need to understand that the first time you download the form and save it, it's going to give you that guidance so you know and you're not missing out on that matching component. You can also see that line 5 indicates his contributions to his medical expenses. Line 6, he's choosing to exclude $10,000 annually towards housing. And line 7 represents Reverend Wesley's base taxable wages reported by the church on Reverend Wesley's W-2 at $26,423. There are no more changes on the comp form when it comes to the basic sides of it, but part 4 is something we need to talk about. I talked a little bit earlier about the question about pension calculation. Billable compensation is housing plus your base. So in this example, Reverend Wesley lives in a parsonage, so his base compensation, you add 25%, and that makes his billable compensation $62,500. That is the number that his retirement pension calculations are based off of. And that's listed there, a total church responsible pension. So with those selections, his total church responsible pension is $92.50 for 2014. If we kind of scroll down, 2, 3, 4, and 5, those pages have not changed much, but we get to page 6, which deals with the UMPIP selections. This is the important thing that we kind of need to really kind of go over. Understanding the importance of the match. Bob explained compounding interest, the rule of 72. He's right on. Very important. It's important that you understand exactly what you're looking at here. What we did is we added a field called before tax UMPIP 1% match. We added this field to help you understand the matching component of the billable compensation. So in this example, the first time you fill out the form, it's going to give you 1% of his billable compensation, that's $62,500, and tell you that you need to contribute at least $62,500 to your pension to receive the full matching component of CRISP. But you need to understand on this formula, this is the only formula on the comp form that is not protected, that if you enter it in, the formula is going to go away. So if you get rid of the formula, okay. If you get rid of the formula, you're going to get a big red thing that says failure to contribute 1% to your UMPIP will result in you not receiving your 1% match. So understand that. Okay. Well, I had some special effects and everything there. But you need to understand that once you enter in 0 there, the formula's gone forever and you're not going to see it again. So to the right of that formula is a little protected cell that says this is the amount required for you to receive the match. That's an informational tool only. It does not relate to, it won't feed to your comp form. It won't tell me to deduct that from your pay. It won't tell your treasurer. It just tells you this is what you have to receive the match. So understand that that's what that formula is there for. The second section deals with additional UMPIP contributions. So this section is used for additional employee contributions to put into UMPIP. Like Bob mentioned, we encourage you to save, and we want you to save more than the minimum required. So if you wanted to save additionally, you would put it in this field. Mm-hmm. Yes. Now the question is that you don't have to put, you could put 0 in the top number, the 1% match if you want, as long as the cell reads on the total numbers. So as long as your total before tax UMPIP below it is 625 or greater, you're going to see the message, you're going to be fine. So it's going to take those two cells and add them together. Now, also remember that your matching component is not strictly limited to before tax contributions. If you want to contribute after tax, you're more than welcome to as well. You could do that there. You just put it on there at 625. But it has to go into your UMPIP account. You can't put it in your 401k. You can't put it in your IRA and get the match. It has to go to the general board. So we've looked at that side of it. Now let's go to page 7, which is the medical insurance premiums. Remember that for clergy, we have the wellness plan. And it's important to understand that we're not going to know the final results of the wellness plan until December. And so when you fill out this form, you're going to see your active health insurance rate. And above that, you're going to see a little disclaimer that says, premiums are not reflective of wellness tax credits before results from Bravo. I don't know the exact words, but that's what it's going to tell you. That message will only show up if you select active clergy. We only have 3 rates, single, 2-party, and family. If you select another rate, you won't see that. So just understand how that works. So in this example, Reverend Wesley is choosing family coverage across the board at $150 to medical expense reimbursement. So at the very bottom, you can see his total monthly deductions to his health insurance. Okay. Second question deals with a part-time local pastor. A part-time local pastor, in this example, in this example, Reverend Wesley is a part-time local pastor appointed 75%, serving the church, and he receives $24,000 in base compensation and lives in a parsonage. So we made the proper selections as a part-time local pastor. His appointment is 75%. And so, as you can see in line 4, since he is not appointed 100%, the matching component does not add up. It's 0. And so if he were to be 100%, it would calculate the 1% of that compensation for him. You can see that since he is less than full-time, he's not eligible for health insurance, so that's line 5 is left blank. Line 6, Reverend Wesley is choosing to exclude $6,000 towards his housing. And then line 7 represents John Wesley's base taxable wages reported by the local church on his W-2 to be $18,000. We talk about his pension calculations. This is an important thing to understand. Since he lives in a parsonage, his total billable compensation, which is his base plus his housing, is $30,000. Since he's appointed less than 100%, he's not enrolled in Clergy Retirement Security Plan. He's going to be enrolled in the UMPIP plan, and the church will be billed 10% of his compensation for his pension. And that number is represented there. You can see 10% of $30,000 is $3,000. It's important to note that if you were to change his percentage of appointment to 100%, it would automatically calculate it as if he was enrolled in CRISP, and you would see the difference in total church responsible pension. It's a big difference. You need to understand how that works. Your DSs have been versed in this probably too much. They know what's going on, so if you have questions, ask them, or if you have any more questions, just call me. I hear DSs laughing, I think. So on this form, since Reverend Wesley is a part-time local pastor, he's not eligible for the matching component. He could contribute to UMPIP if he wanted to. He would just put that in page 6 in the appropriate spot. And since he's less than full-time, he's not in the PIN, and he's not eligible to be in the health insurance plan. So that's not a point there. So that's the part-time local pastor example. The next example has to deal with a local pastor serving a multiple point charge. This is kind of an important one if you serve more than 1 point charge. In this example, Reverend Wesley is a full-time local pastor appointed 100%, serving 2 churches, and received a combined charge salary of $35,000 in base compensation. Church A pays him $25,000. Church B pays him $10,000. Let's look at Church A's comp form real quick to see how that would work. You can see that in this example, since he's splitting his time between 2 churches, the first thing you need to understand is that he's not appointed 50% to Church A and 50% to Church B. He's actually appointed 100% to both churches. So on the comp form, it's important that you have the percentage of appointment at 100%. If you don't, it won't calculate correctly, and then we'll have to do some administrative work, and it will be kind of a headache for everybody involved. So understand that you need to be 100% on both churches. In line 4, we see that his base is $25,000, lives in a parsonage. You can see line 4 that automatically calculates as 1% UMPIP match. So that's listed there. You can see that line 5 deals with his medical expenses, that he wants to contribute to his medical expenses. Line 6, Reverend Wesley wants to designate $10,000 to housing. He's dedicated that there. So in line 7, that leaves his total taxable wages. It's good to be clergy, to be $1,736 for the year. So if we talk about his pension calculation, we're going to take that $25,000 and add 25% on for a parsonage. That leaves his total billable comp at $31,250. And since he is 100% appointed, his pension calculation is automatically going to calculate. An important thing you need to understand is that anybody that serves a 2-point charge knows this because I usually talk to you, but you have to enter the compensation information from your Church B on the form for Church A, and there's a section to do that. The same thing going when you do Church B, you have to enter in Church A as well. It's important you understand that because the forms don't read out and the church will get a different amount for pension. I wish there was an easier way I could do it, but it's the only way we can do it from a safe standpoint. If you have additional questions on this, please feel free to ask me anytime. Nothing has changed on the before tax and after tax contributions, except that an important thing to note is that it's only going to tell you 1% of the compensation required for the one church in the charge, not for the total charge compensation. So if you're making $25,000 from Church A, it's going to give you 1% of that amount to meet the matching component for one church. It's not going to give you the total 1% you need to receive the full match. That 1% is based on your total compensation. In this example, it's based on $35,000 a year. So that's important to understand how that works. You can choose to remit contributions out of one church. As long as you meet the 1% of the total compensation, you're fine. Or you could choose to do 1% from each church. However you want to do it, it's fine, it's easy, but we're here to help you. On this, you can see the health insurance selections, nothing has changed. Everything is the same. He's going to do family across the board, $150 to medical expense, and it's listed on the bottom. Really quick, I just want Brian to show us Church B so you can see how that form relates to Church A, because it needs to be in there as well. Church B, full-time local pastor, 4. So in this example, we have to enter the compensation information for Church B at $10,000, living in a parsonage. Remember, you share a parsonage value. If you're living on Church A's parsonage, Church B shares that obligation, so you have to make sure you mark that. It has to be the same for both sides. So on this side, you can see that $10,000 is entered. It gives them the 1% for the UMPIP for that match, and then he's not choosing to do his salary reductions to his health insurance through this, or he's not choosing to exclude any money, so that's all listed right there. So the one thing I want you to see is further down on page 6 is where we enter the information from Church A's compensation. We have to have that information in there at all times. Page 7, I'm sorry, Brian. There, we enter the 31.5. That's the total billable comp, which is the base plus housing. We have to have that in there. Okay, final example, and I promise we can eat lunch. When we passed rules at annual conference, we had some pretty strict rules. And we did that because the federal government defined full-time employment as 30 hours or more per week. Affordable Health Care Act had some pretty strong employer penalties for not offering what's deemed affordable coverage or deemed affordable coverage at all. That penalty was centered around the fact that you had to offer health insurance to full-time employees only. So what our Conference Board of Pensions did is we put our heads together. and decided to make the health insurance available to 100% only full-time clergy, appointed only. And we worked with the Commission on Equitable Compensation, and they helped us define full-time employment for the first time at 100%. The federal government defines full-time employment as working 30 hours or more per week. In the past, we've had clergy that have been appointed 75% who were, with a written notice from the district superintendent, allowed to be in the health plan because they worked technically 30 hours or more per week. So at annual conference, one of the biggest issues we had was, what are you going to do with my health insurance? Well, we're going to offer it for you. Recently, the government delayed the employer mandate responsibility, which is a big, big boost to us. Brian and I were doing hopscotch down the hallway when we found out. It's really helps us. It really helps protect the church.